Jim Evans, everybody, here in Pinecone Studios. I'm appreciative of you, man.
Thank you very much for having me, man. I'm very blessed.
This
that
has
you asked.
been a excellent time for us to get to know each other, even though we met quite a while ago at the church. You were sort of a hired gun for the church that I attend, came on board as a sort of an audio guy, right? But things were not you weren't hired on because you were this Christian volunteer, right?
No, I was contacted by telephone by a pastor and
Yeah.
had a meeting with him and Kenny over there. And after the conversation, they thought I'd be an added bonus to the team. So it worked out where I was able to be a part of the ministry over there for, I guess, 2.5 or 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. And so that's where we met. We've had a number of conversations. It's the first time it's being recorded. So watch out, whoever's listening. And so I wanted to have you come on because you have a very interesting story of finding Christ that I want to get into. So let's start back sort of a little further back. So, you were sort of came on as like the hired gun, right? So how did you sort of get into like the audio world of production or that sort of stuff?
So basically, I was a musician.
Yeah.
My mother was a piano teacher when I was growing up, and I became a bass player and wound up playing in rock bands for 20 years or so. And,
Yeah. What kind of rock bands? Like, what was your influences and
It was
stuff?
the hair metal bands.
Yeah.
All the scary ones that thought they should put hairspray in and makeup on. But that's where that's how and through that I wound up becoming an audio engineer, kind of by mistake. One of the bands I was in broke up, and the sound guy was like, "Hey, do you know anything about sound?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Well, you're the monitor engineer now," and that's literally how that
It's like just like church. Hey, we lost our head deacon. You're up or whatever.
Yeah. So and that's a funny story because the first time I ever did it, he goes, "This knob does this. This knob does this," and I was working with the band, and they're like, "Turn this up, turn this up." And they came off the stage and they're like, "That's the best monitors we ever had.
Wow.
You want to go on the road with us?" And then the sound guy goes, "Hey, you blew up my amplifier."
Uh-oh.
So that was 1989, I think.
1989.
Yeah.
Well, wow. I was just a young buck back then.
Yeah.
But you're in the metal scene. So you traveled around doing gigs and stuff?
I did. I traveled with the band for a year or so just out of high school. And then there was a little bit of a time off where I went and did some other stuff, but I went for 20 years. I was a sound engineer and wound up starting my own sound company here in St. Louis with my father. And we were extremely successful, and we wound up being approached and asked to have it purchased from us by a larger production provider, and we sold the company, and I became a union audio guy for the Dome and Savas Center and things like that.
So more of a freelance. So you started a business, sold it. Now you're working freelance. Did you enjoy that work, or was it just sort of work for you?
It was fun. It wasn't a job. It was like getting to play with a big stereo.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And
Turn it up to 11.
yeah, sporting events were a little off the beaten path, but when I got to do concerts, man, that was a lot of fun. You know.
Yeah. So what was tell me some of your favorite concerts you've been at?
So I've done Cheap Trick, ZZ Top.
All right, she's got legs. Yeah.
Yeah, we did some. I did some concerts for Evanescence and breaking all the big names because the company that I sold to wound up hiring me to go do the jobs. So you name it, anybody you can think of from the 50s all the way up to newer acts. I worked with all of them.
That feels stressful though to me. Like a band comes into town, they're here for one night only, and you've got to set up a place that's not really, it's made for the St. Louis Blues to play, but we need you to build a stage and get all the equipment up and all the speakers and all this and get it plugged in and make sure it's working correct by 7 p.m. The band goes on at 8. Like that seems like a very stressful situation.
That's a lot less stressful than doing a Joyce Myers convention.
Is it really? Oh, please, explain.
Okay, so in a concert, it's usually throw and go. You'll come in the morning, you'll load the trucks in, the stage will be built by the stagehands, and the lights are hung, and we hang the speakers from motors, and everything just goes up in the air. We have a sound check. Show goes on for 90 minutes. Bring it all down, put it in the truck.
Yeah.
When you have a convention for something like Joyce Myers or something like that, there's weeks of setup. And there's trucks. Like the last time I did a Joyce Meyer show, there was probably 20 trucks worth of gear.
Oh my goodness.
And she travels with all of her own stuff and all of her own crew. So my job was basically to follow the directions of whoever was in charge of either the monitors or the front of house, and to set up his area and run all the cabling and put out all the mics and all that kind of stuff. And we didn't really do the show part of it. We went away for that. And then, so we set up for a week. They do rehearsals with acts that are going to perform, worship teams. And then they would have their convention, and then we'd come back in. And it took a week to set it up. It only took 2 days to pull it down.
Yeah, usually pulling stuff off the walls a little faster.
Exactly.
than hanging it up perfectly or whatever.
But that was, that's part of my testimony too. It's being an audio engineer.
Yeah. I
was able to be in close contact with just about every single denomination you can imagine.
Yeah.
Including and not limited to Jehovah's Witness, but every single denomination you could think of has called on me at one time or another to help them with their production needs. And I never really looked at it like what was coming out of the speakers was more important than putting all the speakers together.
Yeah, interesting.
So, and it wasn't until after I got saved that I realized that I had all this experience of listening to all this stuff. And sometimes I'd hear things and, that sounds pretty good, or I'd hear things that would refer to issues that I was having in my life and what the Word was saying to do about it. I never really paid too much attention to it because my past includes some alcoholism problems, and it was a long time for me to get over that kind of stuff. Yeah. But when I did, I had this wealth of experience and knowledge that I could go back and look at and look into, and it really helped to get.
When you were listening to, because I'm curious about this, because when I was, before I was born again, and I would hear people talk. I was sort of raised in the Baptist church as a young kid, but I also blamed God for my father's death. So I ran away from religion, right? I ran away from Jesus. And so I had this idea of I was saved. I was probably going to heaven, but there was no way I was having a relationship with God. At least that's what I thought at the time. And so for 2 decades, I feel this way. And so when anybody brought up the name of Jesus around me, I was sort of just itching in my, can we change the subject? It was.
I completely understand. I was raised in a devout Catholic home.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that. My parents were wonderful. My experiences with the church were always wonderful. I was literally an altar boy. My mother was a church organist.
That's where your love for music started, right?
Exactly. And so that was a foundation where I actually was regularly hearing the Word. I was a kid. I didn't really apply any of this stuff. You know how that works. But whenever I was, and I knew I was saved too. I believed Jesus died for my sins, and that's what I thought was the only thing that was important. So it didn't matter when out in the rest of my life when people bring up, I'd be like, whatever, I'm not. That's all taken care of. Mm-hmm. But as I fell into my alcoholism and started experiencing issues in my life, I started to realize, what's going on here. And I formed a relationship with God through Alcoholics Anonymous.
Really?
I was regular daily prayer. It got me sober for 10 years.
When did your alcoholism start? What got you drinking?
I was in high school. It was just, it's the thing that everybody was doing. And it just progressively got worse. I was the kind of drunk that I wouldn't get drunk every day, but every time I started drinking, I wouldn't stop until some type of outside source, jail,
Sleep.
A fight,
right?
Pass out in the gutter.
Yeah.
So that's the type of alcoholic I was. And the key thing, it's a journey. It's been a journey for me because in Alcoholics Anonymous, in the back of the book, there's a page that says the spiritual view of alcohol. And I read the entire page, but the one thing that stuck out to me was at the bottom, and it said by Father Dowling S.J. So I couldn't read the entire book and get that out there. I had to go find out what Father Dowling, and it turns out it meant Society of Jesus. He was a Jesuit. So ding, I don't got to really do any work here. I just got to go find out what Father Dowling's about. Right. So within a year of that, I was actually with the Jesuits talking about becoming a brother, wow. and the craziest thing happened, John. They sent me down to the basement where the library was, and they said, go talk to brother so-and-so and hang out with him. you know, because I told my story how I got there, and they're like, "You're a production guy. We could send you to Mexico. This would be great." You know, but they needed me to be serious. So they sent me to talk to this brother in the basement, and he gave me this book. He goes, "Go read this book, and let me know what you think about it."
Yeah.
Halfway through the book, and I realized it's a book that says you can't fix the inside by changing the outside.
Uh-oh.
I was, you know, he was telling me that I had some work to do in here. So that didn't really pan out. They still contact me quite often. I have a couple of friends that are in that, but that led me to put the brakes on, trying to figure out how to fix me.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and eventually the alcoholism came back. I wound up, believe it or not, going to prison for a minute, and there I had an experience with literally experience of God working in my life to save me from a very dangerous situation. And I came out, got sober again. The problem was I was still lost. I didn't understand that yes, Jesus was real and he did die for my sins, but I have to do something for that to actually take effect and work in my life. You know, you can say, "Oh, I'm washed in the blood and everything's good," but the problem is, you have to form a relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
You can't just, okay, I'm saved and that's it. That's not how it works. And that led me to actually, you know, when I was working at the church with you,
Yeah.
I was immersed in Pastor Anis's sermons because I was doing the audio for him, and I started listening and I started reading, and things started happening in my life. I started getting blessings when I would take suggestions and do actions and refrain from certain things. You know, the sin is a real thing and it has consequences,
whether you believe or not.
Exactly. So the whole thing, everything that I've gotten to this point was the process of me finding out that there's sin is real. I'm born a sinner. And just because Jesus died on the cross and I accept that, it's not really enough. You know, at least it wasn't for me. Yeah. And, so the whole thing has been a crazy, long, strange journey. Yeah. But in the end, through all of that, I wound up being led to turn my life over to Christ.
Yeah, what happened? I mean, because it sounds like, to me, like listening to your story. So I hear sort of you're being influenced, whether it's by the AA book or it's by the Joyce Meyer conference or it's by the whatever speaker you heard on the Catholic Church or whatever the situation was that you were sort of hearing an outside influence. You know, you sort of took bits and pieces and maybe you had an amalgam. And I think a lot of people in the world do this. So they they take what they like and keep that, and things they don't like, they sort of push it away, and they all call it God. They all call it I'm a Christian. Because and so they have, because they can put it on this big umbrella. But when you're talking about the blood of Jesus and asking forgiveness of sins and giving my life over to Jesus, that's a different language.
100%.
And so I'm curious, like, how you got to a point where like you were able to step over that line essentially.
So throughout my life, I kind of became a conspiracy theorist.
Okay.
And I was going down all these rabbit holes and finding out that there's evil in this world.
Yeah.
And I found myself trying to tell people about it, but it was more like I was trying to scare them. Hey, look at this. We got to do this.
Yeah.
Everybody be worried.
Fire.
And that got me depressed.
Did it really?
Yeah, it got me depressed.
Just thinking about that stuff?
No, all of the information that I was getting about.
Oh, I see. The information was depressing
you. Yeah. So I literally went into a deep depression about a year ago. And I was reading the Bible and I was watching all the videos and reading, I had the Bible on my phone, but it wasn't taking. And I was sitting on my couch. It was 1:00 in the morning. And I'm like, man, I just can't deal with all this. What's going on? And I was literally just filled, and I sprung up off the couch, and it came to me, you got to get real, or you got to get, or you're done. You need to go get baptized. It came in my head. And I literally, that was a Friday night. I went the next day looking for churches, and I found a church that I fit in, and I joined that church. And then within a month I was baptized. And crazy thing that you're in this story. So I'm praying, okay, God, here I am. What am I doing? What, how can I get into this? What do I need to do to show you I'm serious and actually do some work for you? And the very next morning, you text me on the telephone and you asked me if I would help with Kurt's Pray for the Lou audio.
Yeah.
And I was immersed in a week's long worth of different churches, different ministers, pastors, and different worship teams, one after the other, every single day.
Yeah.
And it was the most joyful time I can remember in a long time.
Oh, wow.
So, that being said, I knew I was on the right track.
Yeah.
And since then, I just turn the world off as much as I can, and I stay in the Word as much as I can, and I'm reaping the benefits. It's not easy.
Yeah.
The world still creeps in, anger, fear, temptation. But as long as I remember that I made a commitment to invite Jesus into my heart, when I slip and fall, I can always go back.
Yeah.
But he's always there every second of every day. So
it's interesting to me that you sort of describe, I was depressed in that sort of one night you're just like, look, I got to get my act together. And this thought of baptism came into your mind. Like you weren't like reading your Bible. There was no like thing on the TV. Like there wasn't like a spark, it seems like, other than you just, it's like, that's, I don't understand that, so explain that more to me.
Okay. So it was, I believe I was being told that, okay, you got it. You understand where I'm coming from, but you need to start being obedient.
Okay.
You need to commit. And this is how you start your commitment, is you outwardly show that commitment.
Yeah. And you hadn't felt that in your years of doing Catholicism?
I was baptized as a baby, as Catholics are. But in that instance,
because the church you're going to now is not Catholic. So I'm trying to I want to just sort of understand your sort of journey from one to another as far as denominations go.
I don't think it was a specific desire to leave the other denomination. I think it was basically, I was told to go do this. Okay. I found a place that I was comfortable, and where I felt accepted. People go to church all the time, and here's the one thing that I've always bumped into, just trying to go to a church.
Yeah.
It's very awkward.
Oh, it certainly is.
When you walk into church and everybody's looking at you, who's that? At my church, there was none of that. It was, hey, come on, for you. And that's very important. And there's people that have come to our church that have had negative experiences that won't go back to church. Those people are, in my opinion, if I was looking for an excuse not to stay at the church.
Yo.
And here's my confirmation. See, I told you, it's just, they're all hypocrites, the whole nine yards. But the fact of the matter is, we are commanded to show the love of Christ in every situation. Mm-hmm. And that, especially at church, you know. So, but yeah, the transition from the denominations, I didn't even know what denomination the church I chose was. We're non-denominational. I think we're very close to Baptist.
Right.
But
that means nothing to you because it's all about Jesus. So
bingo, bango, boingo.
Do you feel that like it was God who was telling you to go get baptized? Like, did you know God was speaking to you? Like,
I felt compelled. I felt like he spoke to me and said, look, it's time to either commit or not.
Right.
And I've read several stories.
Were you thinking about him though? Like, were you thinking?
No, I was depressed.
Because that's so crazy how they're just because I had my own alone in my apartment moment where Jesus showed up, so I can put myself in your shoes.
I was literally,
but it seems so unusual.
I was literally, what am I going to do? That's what came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Get up off the couch.
You asked a question.
And I don't specifically think I was praying. I was just, what am I going to do? And I was literally sprung up off the couch. I felt lifted up off the couch.
Yes.
Like I had to listen to this.
Same thing to me. When I got born again, Jim, the night I got born again, I said, God, if you're real, I need you to show me a future and a hope for my life. It was a question. And then instantly I felt compelled to go open the Bible. It was in my other room. I mean, I use the word compelled just like you did in my books and everything. Like, I know what it's like to feel like, I don't know why I want to do this, but I've got to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a miracle. It is literally a miracle that's there for everyone.
Yes.
Uh, you and through the pain and misunderstandings and adversities of life, that's God reaching out to you.
Yeah.
And the trick is, am I going to listen or am I going to wallow in this?
You took a step of faith to go to that church and go get baptized a couple days later. What was that like for you in that journey? Like, did you feel like things were going to get better? Did you feel the depression lift? Like, what was it like for you in those early stages?
Instantaneously after I did that, you called me, and I had no choice but to pay attention to what I was being immersed in because of that situation. It was God surrounding me with his people and his word.
That's so good. And I remember, from my side of that story, I didn't realize that had happened to you when I made that call, by the way, because God's doing stuff that we can't see behind the scenes at all times, right? And so God, puts it on my heart to call you because Kurt had a guy lined up. And I'm just telling the story to sort of show you how good God is, not just you, but anybody listening to this, that, Kurt had a guy lined up and they were sort of figured everything was going to work out. And he would ask me previously, like, did I know anybody? I was like, I know a guy. He's not really saved or nothing, but, he's our backup or whatever, and so the other guy fell through and I was like, well, I'll call Jim. I don't know if he'll really be that interested or not. But little did I know that just a couple days prior to that, God was going to get a hold of your heart, and you're going to be so interested.
So God called the shot in that entire situation. Now I'm friends with Kurt.
Yeah.
I've met Foster.
Yeah.
I've just been blessed.
Yeah. Watching you in that week. So what the week you're talking about, for those who don't know, there was a Pray for the Lou week where they did a week full of ministry and prayer for the city, and you've already explained sort of what was going on there. But that week when I watched you, because I'd spent a year with you in the church, I'd had many conversations with you about all sorts of different subjects, but I had never seen you with your hands in the air worshiping. That was the very first time I'd ever seen something like that. And
that was the first time I ever felt that, because I've been to rock concerts before, and that whole thing, but when you're on fire with the Holy Spirit, you have no choice. I tried it the first couple of times to just, I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yes, I felt that way too. I walked out and said, I'm not raising my hands for these people.
Yeah. Now, when I'm at any worship service, any church, and it's time to actually do the praise part of it, I have no choice. I'm just lit up with it. It's pretty insane.
I love your story so much. So that week, you get baptized. You sort of found your church, sort of really fast too. By the way, it's some people look around like I didn't even want to go to church when I got born again. I was like, I got my Bible, that's enough for me. I don't want to give the church my money. All they want is my money. Like that's all I see on TV is they want my money. They're always asking, and so that was a real hang up for me at first. Not now, obviously, but when I hear your story of like everything happened so fast for you,
I think it's because of all of the input that I had prior to that. And
you were like primed almost.
Exactly. I think because here I am, I'm living in this world that's getting really chaotic. Mm-hmm. I have this experience of my lifetime of different denominations and working with all of them. I've been reading the Bible up to this point.
Yeah.
I literally think, like all of us in this time, I was put here for a purpose, for this time in history, and it was automatic. And I can't explain it. I don't want to even try to explain it. I'm just enjoying the blessings. It's not easy.
Yeah,
boy, I get pretty aggravated at things. My job's very difficult. But the fact of the matter is, if I turn all that over to Jesus and just do the next right thing in front of me to the best of my ability, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. The idea that you're able to explain that so concisely is a very mature Christian thing to say, Jim. What I want people to understand is that 6 months ago you might have gone to some other method of trying to relieve the stress of your difficult job or something like that.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I was an alcoholic.
Yeah,
things didn't work out. My shoelace broke. The car's broken. I don't have any money. Well, let's just get drunk.
Yeah.
And now it's, before I make any kind of decision, I always consider the fact that I am an agent or a representative of Christ. And I have to put that first before my feelings. That's literally
What you're describing, Jim, is so mature, and it's so ridiculous because for so many people it takes so long to come to the end of themselves where they're able to say, I got to die to my flesh. I can't
That's exactly what it is.
But people don't understand that. That takes a long time of sitting and sanctification, and for you to just grasp it is so amazing. And that's why I want people to understand that you can have God today, and your life can change today, and you can understand God today, even though you didn't really know the day before.
When God moves on your heart, He moves on your heart, and it's up to you to grab it right then. If you let it go, He might keep knocking.
Yeah.
But your opportunity is it comes to you when it comes to you.
Yeah.
And in this time in the world, it's extremely important to answer that knock. I don't want to get into all that, but I feel that that's one of the reasons that I was saved, how I was saved, and why I was saved.
Yeah, I want to talk about the sort of the contrast between your old life and your new life, right? So you have this background of like rock star and in this world, and sort of like the way that the enemy works in that particular world is extreme, and I don't want to get into every single example of that I can think of, but obviously we know that the world's in that system, right? Yet you worked in that system and you enjoyed that system, and then you got into alcoholism and sort of, but now you've flipped this coin because of Christ, where you're walking a path where you're trying to do the right thing, whatever the right thing is, whether it's not get angry, whether it's not drink, whether it's to help somebody in need, whether it's to share the gospel with somebody, whatever the other thing is, right? The opposite of that. But how do you just step away from that world? Like when you got born again, was it easy to be like, all right, guys, I'm not listening to heavy metal anymore. I'm not going to
it was really scary because I was in a rock band.
Wow.
When this happened, I had a rock band rehearsing in my basement, and I was working in nightclubs. And in the middle of all that stuff, that's how I was making my money.
Yeah. Did you feel like you had to quit? I mean, I feel like some people would think like just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you have to quit doing your rock band.
I don't think I felt like I had to quit, but I had to quit leading or offering people the opportunity to have evil in their life. Offering the opportunity for them to have sin. And it didn't happen overnight. But the band kind of worked itself out, and I got out of the band, and the gigs kind of worked themselves out. And I'll still go do a gig every once in a while now, but I'm not there for anything to do with the environment. I look for the opportunities where I can bring something as an example of what's possible with Christ.
What other types of life changes did you start to experience once you started getting the Word of God in you and the conviction of the Holy Spirit?
So I one of the main things that happened was I was in a relationship with a female, and
girls.
Yeah. And
speak your language.
So of course, being saved and not being married, that's a huge issue. And I had to work that out. Now, her and I are still friends, and we still see each other on occasion. I actually got her coming to my church now.
Wow.
I got her in some Bible studies, and she's awesome lady. But I cannot spend time with single females. It says specifically in the Bible what you're supposed to do regarding courtship, marriage, and the whole nine yards. And I literally had to turn that whole part of my life off to where I'm a single bachelor Christian, and that means something.
Yeah.
I believe that, and this is crazy. You're gonna go, wow, that's crazy. I believe that God is working on me and my relationship with Him. And if there is going to be a female in my life in the future, she's out there doing the same thing. And then eventually, if it's supposed to happen, God's going to make us come together.
Well, that's not crazy. That sounds very reasonable.
Well, not in today's world,
Not from a secular sense.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that happened through this whole process.
Yeah.
I would have, when I got saved, if I thought that was going to be part of it, I'd been like, well, I'm a guy. Guys have feelings, and it doesn't matter. Obedience is what matters, and obedience and faith and prayer results in all of my needs being met.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at how deep a relationship you must have to be able to give up something so serious so quickly into your walk with Christ. Because I can even speak for myself, right? So when I got born again, I had a series. I was deep in addiction when I got saved, and it took 6 months before I got delivered from it. So the idea that you're like already walking away from, you're not saying you were addicted to women, but saying that, like you had issues in your life that you were just like, all right, you got to go. I got to pray in faith and just trust that God's got my plan worked out.
Telling you, she did not like that at all, but she understood, and she saw miracles happening in my life, and she's doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's literally all. It was like a boiling point. You're saying people have to go through all this stuff to get there.
Generally,
I went through all that stuff, and I honestly, I'm going to say this again. I believe because of this time in the history of the world, God is working in people's lives that he never worked in before. And he's doing things for people that he never did before because he needs people to be representatives of him more than ever. And I'm not really going to get into all that because I don't, this is about me and my testimony. But the fact of the matter is, I believe that there are other people out there like me right now that were just as far gone with worldly issues that we're going to never let them have a relationship with Christ, that this is happening to. And I think I'm just one of many. I
definitely have some thoughts about that, and it's the Bible talks about in the book of Joel, redeeming the lost time of the locust, and like for me that's always meant in my personal belief of that scripture. And sure, of other examples that you can say, well, this is what I think it means. This is what John takes it as, right? So John takes it as, okay, I was 30 years old when I got born again, and the life that I'm living now for Jesus from the day I got born again till the day I die, it's condensed into that time. Now, if I was born again at 10 years old, he has more time to work within that time frame, right? Where someone says, well, I'm just too old for this or whatever. Like, look, if you're 50 or you're 60 or you're 70 or you're 80, whatever that last day is, God's going to redeem a lot of time in whatever that period of time is. And so for you, it's your age till the day you die. God's got to sort of put all that's exactly right. He's got to cram it all in there. And so that's why I love stories like yours, because it's almost proof of what I already believed about a verse like that, is that, look, Jim's got a certain amount of time, and Jim's got to do the work that God's called him to do, whether he got born again at 10 or 50. Exactly. He's got this amount of time to do this amount of work, and I love that story.
It's 100% exactly what I think, and I'm emphatic that there are many other people that are just like me that are looking for the answer to what is wrong. What is wrong with me? That's what I kept asking myself. What is wrong? Why is everything always falling apart?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, I was living for myself with the best knowledge that I had on how to force the square peg into the round hole.
Yeah, I get that.
And the fact of the matter is, of myself, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
The Father doeth the works. And it just literally took everything it took, and the key is answer, because you can hear him knocking. You might not know it's him knocking, but you people are nudged. I was nudged all along.
Yeah.
And I could have had all that other time if I'd answered earlier. You know what I'm saying?
How do you begin to recognize his voice as someone who's just beginning to hear it for the first time?
So sometimes it sounds like an inner conscience type of voice. Other times you can feel physical forces of situations leading you where you're supposed to go. For me, I've never actually, except for the time that I was told to go get baptized, actually heard God's word. I can find it now in prayer and meditation, but I literally think he's in you, whether you've accepted him or we are part of God. He's our creator. And so he's in there, and he's clawing to get out, and we just keep pushing him back down with, no, I got to have cigarettes. I got to have drugs. I got to have girls. I got to have rock and roll, and no, you don't need any of that. because none of that actually fixes anything. It just puts off the misery till later.
I'm just going to sit and marinate in that for a second, as Tim Ross would say. You don't need that. You don't need that. But that's what the world uses to answer this question that they don't even know they're asking, is why do I feel unfulfilled? Why does my life feel empty? And there's this bucket that they're supposed to fill it with Jesus. And no matter how many times we say it to them, they got to come to a point like you did, where you just said, you were ready. You were ready to say, I'm listening now. I'm listening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I ran out of options. I ran out of alternatives. I tried everything else. I was so depressed that I didn't even want to get up off the couch and leave the house.
Yeah.
And that command to go do that, it was hard. You want to talk about somebody that's...
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Somebody's brand new to church, trying to find a church to go to, and
somebody with a rock and roll, heavy metal background.
Exactly, and I could just imagine walking in the way that I did to some more of the conservative type churches and I felt it before at other churches. They're like, what is he doing here? That's how they might not be thinking that, but that's what you think they're thinking.
Yeah. I'll tell a story about, so I met a guy outside. I used to work at a Christian bookstore, and God had asked me to stay late one day. I didn't want to stay late, and so I was having this conversation with God, like, I'm already working for you. Do you have to make me work late too? Like, do I have to do this? And so I left work late, and I met a guy in the parking lot. And as I was in the parking lot, I saw him walk by my car, and I hear God tell me in my mind, go talk to that guy. And I was like, it's 10 o'clock at night, Lord God. I ain't trying to mess with all this. Like, I'm trying to get home and go to bed. Got my family, my kid. At the time I just had one child. But I felt prompted. You got to go back there. You got to go back there. And I was like, fine. I was like, but I'm only doing one pass in the parking lot. You make these, they make these conversations with God. That's how I do it. I know a lot of people maybe feel similarly. So I was like, but if I don't see him, I'm just going back home, Lord. And so of course I pull around on the other side. I don't see him. I'm like, good. And I start to pull out, and then he goes walking right in front of my car. And I was like, all right. And so I got out and I talked to the guy. And as I begin to realize, as I walk out, I see his face, I recognize that it's somebody that I've already witnessed to before. It was the very first person I ever witnessed to as a born-again believer. He asked me for some money in another part of town, like far away from where I was at this day. And he had asked me for some money before, and it was the first time I ever said, well, I'll help you out, but I also want to pray with you. And I was like, do you know Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior? And I witnessed to the guy, and he's just like, oh, yeah, blah, blah. And he's giving me the rundown to get what he wants, right?
Yep.
But the second time, I was like, do you remember me? Like, he was like, no. And I'm like, I prayed with you, and I explained the story to him about the first time I met him, and he just breaks down. He gets on his knees, and he starts weeping. He's like, I was just praying and asking God to help me, and I was having real thoughts and questions about God and all this stuff. And he's like, I can't believe that God sent you to me. I've been praying and praying, not just for me, but for an answer from God. And here it is. And so I was like, well, man, this is your chance. This is your chance. And so I was like, I'm going to church. It was a Saturday night. I was like, I'm going to church in the morning. Let me pick you up. You don't have a car. I'll come to your house. I'll get you. I'll take you to church. So I did that. I woke up and I drove down to some crazy house in the middle of a drug laden street. You can
the demilitarized.
You could tell that it had been a while since some upkeep had taken place in this area, right? And so we take the guy to church. And the reason I'm telling the story is because of what you were talking about sort of like how people perceive other people, right? So I just had this incredible encounter where this man felt Jesus show up in his life
through you,
through just a meeting with me. And I'm bringing him to my church, and we're in the middle of service. He's sitting next to me, and he's like, I gotta go smoke a cigarette. Well, shoot, go smoke a cigarette, dude. I don't care. You're here for the first time. I'm not like you didn't need to come up in your suit. You didn't need to have everything figured out today.
Yeah.
There's a time for this, a time for that. So the guy goes outside. Now this was at a small church. This wasn't at like one of the bigger churches I've attended in my life, but 3 of the deacons followed him outside and like watched him smoke a cigarette in the parking lot, and then followed him back inside when he came back inside. And that always struck me as like one of the worst things that I've ever seen a church do. Like, what do you think he's going to do? Like, he might be in the hallways by himself for 30 seconds. Like, oh my gosh, you think he's going to rob us? Where's the money? The money's not in the hallway. Like, I had all these thoughts, right? But when you talk about how a person who's been born again, who maybe has a history Maybe he's not even born again. Maybe he's just looking.
Yep.
He's just looking. That's what he was with me. He was just looking for answers and looking for something.
Yep.
And you come and it's so difficult just to not have the people stare at you in a certain way, or not to feel a certain way about you, or not to have the thoughts in your head about what is that person thinking about me right now,
Exactly,
and making it so uncomfortable. And so that guy never came back.
Yeah, that's the one thing about my church, man, is anybody can walk in that building and it's like they were there all along. You're not new. If you're there, it's because God brought you there, and we know that.
You have one of the church that you attend. It's not your church, but it's the church that you attend, right? It's God's church, but God has He has made an incredibly creative church. So tell people who maybe aren't from St. Louis, who might be wondering what kind of church it is that you attend.
So the name of my church is called Have Bible Will Travel.
Yeah,
Pastor Pat Rankin, and they started out just a guy on a motorcycle with a Bible witnessing to people at bars.
Yes.
And it grew so big that they wound up getting a building, and then partnering with the church, another church that had a bigger building. And now we have 3 campuses. It's literally all walks of life, but there's a lot of bikers.
Yes. I've been to the church many times. It is a different atmosphere than any other church that I've been to, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, pastors, he'll tell you, he goes, "This is not your mother's church." That's one of his things. And if you want to hear the truth, if you want to no bones, no holes barred truth about what it means to enjoy a life with Christ, he'll tell you.
Yeah.
And it's, he's on fire when in the middle of his sermons. He starts yelling and crying, but it's the truth. If you're doing something wrong, you're going to hear the thing you're doing coming out of his, and and everything seems to pinpoint exactly. Every time I go sit in that church, it's exactly what I needed to hear at that moment. And we have retreats and Bible studies all week long. We have a boxing ministry.
Yeah, Mike Wood. Yeah, he's a buddy of mine.
Where we take, anybody can come and be a part of it, but they do competitions in national leagues, and there's title belts and the whole 9 yards. But you show up at our church on I think it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You're going to see a gym full of people in a boxing ring and being ministered to.
Boxing for Jesus.
It's good for the youth. It's good for the inner city youth. And it's, it's proving to be a positive influence to people that might not regularly get that.
Yeah.
And the people that come to the boxing ministry for the boxing, they wind up staying for the church.
As I say, you play by the creek long enough, you slip in.
You go to the barber shop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Yeah,
right,
whatever,
right, Simeon?
whatever the analogy is. And but the thing that I love about this church is that it's just so welcoming. And so for an outcast group, like you might say, like a biker. I don't want to use the word gang, but a biker group. Like when I went to Sturgis during COVID of all times, right?
Those aren't real bikers.
They're not? Okay. Well, I saw 200,000 bicycles, motorcycles. Right?
Those are actually like lawyers and doctors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they trailer their motorcycles there.
Oh, well, hey, you learn something new every day.
No, there's bikers that go to Sturgis. I actually have a long history with the motorcycle community. My father literally bought me my first Harley Davidson when I was about 12 years old.
12 years old. Well, you're not even legal to ride it. What, is that
it was a Italian-made Harley Davidson 2-stroke motor, moped kind of thing. But I started riding again in my early 30s, and I wound up in a motorcycle club.
That's a club, okay. All right.
And it was,
get the terminology right, John.
Yeah, it was a motorcycle club, and it was probably not a very good place for me to be. But I learned things there too. I actually was in a recovery-based motorcycle club that was associated with a 1% club. And the 1% club was like, "You're too cool to be with those guys. Come over here." And I was drunk in a week.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the reputation of a group like that is typically one that doesn't have Jesus in it, or at least they're not
Exactly.
walking out that kind of relationship with him.
Exactly.
And so for a place like Have Bible Will Travel to be there for those people, not those people, but I mean just like anyone who is disenfranchised and feels like they're in a group that's sort of outcast or whatever it is, to have a safe place to come and be like, hey, look, I've messed up for a while and I'm still trying to get not messed up, right? Like I think so many churches have it like you got to show up perfect, or you got to show up and look perfect.
No.
That's not how it works.
When Jesus went to Paul, he was killing Jews.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Preach that message,
so,
right?
So when, I don't think there's anything that you can do that can't be forgiven.
Right.
Now, I don't know if I'm an authority on that, but I do know that Paul, who brought the gospel to the Gentiles, was a Roman citizen Jew who was literally persecuting Christians before he was saved, you know. And I didn't see Jesus, but I sure felt that way when I got stood up off the couch. And I've done some pretty bad things in my life.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that a church might preach the gospel of Paul in the pulpit the same day they go outside with 3 deacons to watch a guy smoke a cigarette?
That's insane. I mean, that's why I'm at church. I try to consider myself at church all day long, every day. Because
It's open, I'm going.
Yeah, because
That's a baby Christian mentality right there, if I've ever heard one. If the doors are open, I'm getting my butt up there.
So I'm telling you, luckily my church has something going on every day out of one of the 3. And for the first couple of weeks, they're like, "You again?" But luckily, I was able to volunteer and help with the audio for the live stream, and they've.
What a glove you fit into there, huh?
They let me play bass in the worship team, you know, when somebody's sick, and I've played keyboards there, which is a blessing because I get to honor my mother's memory, you know, she was a piano teacher.
From Motley Crue to the worship team.
Well, the crazy thing about it is the guitar player on our worship team was a heavy metal guitar player for years until he got saved. Wow. So it's not just some volunteer guitar player. It's a professional world touring lead guitar player.
We get a Slash like solo on
exactly
the Chris Tomlin song, huh?
Yeah, he does do that, and we've even taken secular songs and changed the words. So you come in and you're tapping your feet and you're expecting to hear a secular verse, and all of a sudden it's worship lyrics.
Sweet God of mine.
Yeah, I think what was that? I have to remember of it. Anyways, you should really, if you get a chance, come by our church. I'm serious. I don't expect you to want to join it.
Yeah.
But you're definitely going to get filled with the Holy Spirit.
Did you join the boxing ministry?
No. That's for kids.
Oh, Jim, I wanted to hear some stories you putting the gloves on, or you know.
With Satan? I do that daily.
Fighting against him.
Sometimes I win, and sometimes I got to
so let's talk about that. So sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. So what are the things that you're dealing with today that are like, you know what? You know, let's be vulnerable for a second. Like, our sanctification does not happen overnight, even though much of it did for you. It seems like there's still areas. You know, you mentioned sort of anger a little bit already. But...
I got a story for you.
Okay.
The other day I was pulling up to the store. I was going to go in and get some groceries. And there was a lady that had her car parked between me and the door, and her cart was in the walkway, right? And so I couldn't get past. So the old me would, you know, and I thought,
hey, lady.
No, I thought, hey, do you need some help loading your car?
Oh.
And she looked at me like, this guy wants to help me load my car? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I do. And so I helped her pack up her car, told her God bless, and that made her turn her head again. Like, what's he? God bless from the biker guy? And I have experiences like that every day now. Yeah. The Quick Trip lady's like, can you quit talking about Jesus to all the customers?
No, not the Quick Trip lady. Oh no.
But you know,
gas is $3.59, but Jesus is free.
Talking about the frustrations, the traffic things, the job things. I'm human. You know, I have human emotions. The trick is, I can't initially react right away with what I think I ought to do. I can't yell. I can't scream. I can't pound the high chair. I literally have to go, oh, Jesus is right here. I've invited him into my life. He's with me. I can't turn him off. There's not a switch. I can't send him to the store to get soda.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be, to the best of my ability, a representative of Christ in everything that I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's really hard, especially with work, man. Work. I found a verse. I can't remember the verse, but it's whatever you do, do it as it's for God, not the world.
Unto the Lord, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I literally have that post-it note on my computer screen.
Yeah.
So every time that somebody starts to set me off, I look over that and go, I'm helping this person. I'm blessed with this job. There's many other opportunities for me to be digging ditches somewhere, doing manual labor. I'm in my home on a remote job that pays the bills, on a awesome house that I have. That, if it was up to me, I'd probably still be in prison, like I told you a long time ago. But I'm saved. I have no right to be angry or dissatisfied with whatever happens to me today.
Mm-hmm. I like your practical way of picturing Jesus right next to you.
Have to. He's there. If you don't, you're kind of ignoring him in certain situations.
But you say, well, Christ is with you. But I don't necessarily think of him sitting in the chair next to me. For you to put him in there, everywhere you go, and you whether it's my kitchen or whether it's in the car with you or whether it's next to you at the bank or whatever it is, right? That's such a unique way to encourage somebody. Hey, remember, God's right here.
You don't have to worry, but you can't be that guy you used to be either.
Yeah.
But the blessing of that is, everything happens for a reason. And if I try to align myself to Christ's will, I'm going to reap the benefits of that and be blessed with his grace. So why would I want to mess with that recipe? You change the recipe, you get a different cake.
Because, the reason to do it is because you don't think about that, and it's sometimes it's fun to eat a piece of cake, and sometimes it's fun to get angry, and sometimes it's fun to yell at somebody in the car. It makes your flesh feel good.
I'm the best angry guy you've ever met. I'm really good at it, but it never works out to benefit me or anyone else when I try to do what I think I should do.
Right.
And with practice, it's becoming easier to not revert back to that old thinking of, man, everything's horrible. The world's against me. Yeah. It's not. God made the world for me. God made the world for us. He gave us dominion over it. He gave us power to use his power in situations, in physical and in spiritual matters. And if you remember that, you get to receive the benefits of it. If you don't, if you forget it in this instance, you might have to go a couple more instances of bad things to get back where you were at. I don't want to gamble with that, man. I don't want to gamble with my blessings and my grace.
Like you've made a treasure, which is good. I'm making this a good thing. You've made a treasure of everything you've learned in terms of what God has shown you since you've been born again. Every scripture, every thought, every desire he's placed in your heart, and you're like, it's all treasure. You're just trying to hold it all, and you're trying to be like, I gotta walk with this. I can't. And you've realized that God gives you more and more room to carry it.
Exactly.
But for some of us, it's like, well, I'm just gonna work on this one thing right now, and maybe tomorrow or maybe the next week I'll work on the second thing. But you're trying to do it all at once, which is great. I think it's amazing.
I think that God gives us things to work on because he's trying to keep us from messing with the other stuff that we could really mess up if we were messing with that. Yeah. So if he's going to give you something that you have to deal with, you're going to be concentrating and praying on this and putting all your efforts and energy into this. And it might be for nothing. He might have something way over here that's planned for you that he needs you not to be goofing with yet. And that's all part of the plan. And we don't know his plan for us, but we do know that it's there and there's benefits from it if we just give ourselves over to it. That's literally all it boils down to.
I definitely believe we can pray and ask God for his plan for our life. And I see it in you, like sort of this evangelistic heart, your desire. You take what you've learned in this recent season and you share it as quickly as you receive it. And you're the first person to talk to a stranger or call up somebody and say, hey, I was just thinking about you, and you told me, what was that story you called me and told me about the suicide?
Was it the guy that was going to
Yeah,
eat?
yeah.
Okay, so this was a baptism time.
Yeah.
I literally got baptized and thought immediately of a friend of mine who used to try and witness to me. And I reached out to him, and I had some pictures of my baptism, and I sent them to him on Facebook. And immediately he messaged, "You have to call me right now. You have to call me right now." He goes, "Jim, I was literally sitting here with sleeping pills and alcohol,
It's crazy.
and I was going to kill myself because I thought that I've done no good. There's nothing that I did mattered." And I was like, "Whoa, no, Revel. That's not, his name's Revel Barton. He's very, very different." He's like, no. If you hadn't witnessed to me when you did, that's part of how I got here. And I didn't think to send anyone else the pictures of my baptism, but you. You know what I mean? And he wound up buying me a gigantic Bible with my name embossed on it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we're dear friends. He was a friend of mine since high school. He was like the guy when you're a kid in high school and everybody's picking on you.
Yeah.
He's the guy that would come up and beat all them up.
Oh, that's a good friend to have.
Yeah. So he wound up. He's actually part of a church now. He's doing really well, and we talk a couple times a week, every week, and share our journey.
I'm sure you have a dozen stories like that since getting born again. Because it's if like when this, because it was like this for me, and maybe it's like this for everybody, but I definitely see it in new believers who are on fire for Jesus, that they attract others to them like a moth to a flame. Like when people who are in need or need help or find themselves in a troubled situation, I would find that like people would be like sort of word vomit. Like they couldn't even, like they get around me and they'd be like, "Oh, my son's just getting a divorce. I can't believe it's going." Like, I don't know you, lady. Like like this happened at Walmart once, or you walk out of Walgreens and somebody needs their tire changed. This happened to me. Like, you get put in situations, and I'm sure that for you it's been very similar.
It has. A lot of time it's happening with me on social media now, because my social media used to be, flyers for rock band concerts and really vulgar, rude jokes about things and secular stuff. And now it's literally Bible verses and inspirational thoughts.
Oh, that's speaking of which, while you're talking, I wanted to bring up, because I saw one on your page the other day that was so good that I was like, I'm going to talk to Jim about this when I get him. Because, yeah, you're right. Your social media account prior to Christ was quite a extraordinary journey for people to go on. It's
yeah, it was full of conspiracy theories and slams at this and slams at that. But now, and people will reach out to me there, and I get to witness back to their posts with specific Bible verses about what they're going through.
And you've taken a really high road too, I will say, because some people have come, at least that I've seen in my short time of looking. A couple times I've seen people sort of be against either something you've said or something you posted as a believer, like been like, I'll believe it when you've been like this for 10 years. But I remember Audio Dog. This is your nickname, right? So I remember Audio Dog from 6 months ago, and you sort of are different, like, and sort of calling you out, being like, I don't know if this is real and things like that. Or just blatantly being like, quit it, you stupid liar, or whatever the thing is that this person might be saying. Not that it's the same person, but you handle it with a lot of grace. You're just like, you know what, brother, I'll be praying for you. Appreciate you, instead of getting drawn into maybe an argument you might have gotten.
It's specifically in the Bible not to get into foolish arguments. I think it's Timothy, maybe.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, it's just Proverbs. That's a
We're here to witness, and if it doesn't take, we're to shake the sand from the dust from our feet.
And move on. Yeah, that's right. And so I found this. So this is a post you post. This is from Leonard Ravenhill, who's a wonderful man of God who I've written a book about. We talk about why revivals tarry, and he wrote this quote here: "The greatest miracle that God can do today is to take an unholy man out of the unholy world and make him holy,
and put him back.
Yeah, and then put him back into an unholy world and keep him holy in it."
Amen.
And I thought that this was such a perfect description of what's going on in your life. And also what happened in my life, but you specifically.
It literally feels that way to me, because I was definitely not deserving of what happened to me.
Yeah.
I lived every negative sin thing you could think of to the nth degree. And I was pulled out of it. I was literally lifted out of it and set free. And the way that he's keeping me holy is keeping me in the Word and keeping me witnessing.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do.
Leonard Ravenhill in that quote, he says it's the greatest miracle. It feels like a miracle, right? What happened to you?
Are you kidding? I mean, there's no explanation for it other than God. It has to be a miracle because left to my own devices and getting what I deserved for what I was doing, I would be dead or in prison. And rather than that, I'm living the best life. I have,
Speak that louder.
I have all the blessings I could ever ask for, and it's literally just my house, my car, a job, and my 2 dogs.
Nothing extraordinary has changed in your circumstances.
No,
except for that Jesus showed up in your heart.
Right
and
on
it's
time.
changed the entire way you look at the world.
Right on time. Right on time.
A miracle does not have to be healing someone's broken body. A miracle does not have to be turning water into wine. Sometimes a miracle could just be, I took a man who was here and I put him where he's supposed to be.
And like I said, I'm going to keep saying this. I think it's specifically for this time in history and this time in prophecy and this time in God's plan. He needs more people to be doing his work in front of other people.
Yeah.
And that's...
He calls the few and the willing. He said the laborers are few. And I think that for you, I see you as a complete laborer because every time I've seen you, not only have I seen you multiple times since you've been born again, but I see you worshiping, I see you serving, I see you reaching out to people who are saved, unsaved, doesn't matter to you. You're having conversations about Jesus. You're doing it at Quick Trip. You're doing it at the church. You're doing it at your job, whatever the thing is. And for me, that is a sign of someone who's willing to be a laborer because God says, go out into the ends of the earth and share the gospel of Christ. And you do that through service, through word, through relationship, through friendship.
I got to share this with you, John.
Please do.
So at work, I'm an online remote employee.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of personal interaction. We talk on text and sometimes we'll have Zoom meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was nervous about sharing with some people at work what was going on with me because they noticed the change too.
Yeah.
More work was getting done. Things were getting done right.
You had a smile on your face.
There were less excuses. I was answered the requests quicker. And so I started sharing with one of the salespeople what was going on. And she goes, you know what? That's wonderful. I'm saved too. And and then I got to speak with the vice president of operations, and guess what? She's saved too. So now we literally have a little prayer circle and support group in this online employment situation, which that would never have happened if God hadn't said, hey, you need to probably talk to that person. And, we get to pray for things about people, things going on with people at work. And we get to share things about retreats that we go on. And I get to be a follower of Christ with other followers of Christ at work.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And these people are in different states. One's in California, the other one's in Utah. And, I just can't explain, John, the blessing of knowing that I don't have to worry about anything anymore.
So good.
As long as I stay focused on the Word and what the Word tells me to be, how to be obedient and do that.
Yeah.
And God puts things in my life every day, that before I'd have just blown it off. I didn't get time for that. Well, now I get to make new friends that I would have never made. I get to experience things I've never experienced. Do you see the picture of me riding the horse the other day?
You're an amazing man. We got motorcycles and horses.
I'm telling you, I literally would not have ever got back on. I rode horses when I was a kid, but the thing about the reward of just feeling the warmth or the happiness of people that finally hear that they don't have to worry anymore. When you share it with them, it's so rewarding.
Yeah, because you mentioned many times that, like, the world's like sort of in a scary place, and for someone who was thinking about that stuff a lot and posting about it a lot, and you said it caused a depression. Like, it sounds like things have turned around, not only in your life with Jesus, but like your hope for the future. Like even though things might still be scary, your hope in sharing hope with others is
so
changed.
part of that entire situation of God springing me off the couch and telling me to go get saved and start doing His work was I was trying to scare people into looking at how bad things were in the world. And I was literally led to give them the answer instead of showing them all the problems all the time. And I think that is part of what God is calling me to in ministry.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just said that word, but I believe God wants me to show people the answer. And all, if you look around, there's chaos everywhere. But we don't have to worry about that. God has a plan for that, and God has a plan for the people that are going to follow Him and do His will. And if we take the answer that God's offered, it's all taken care of. And it's automatic. All we have to do is just be happy and enjoy the faith and the grace.
Man, amazing testimony, Jim. I just appreciate you sharing with us so much.
I'm glad that you had me here. I'm extremely grateful. I feel like a true brother of Christ in you, and our relationship and how it formed is just, that's another miracle.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we'd ever wound up sitting here if I was not saved.
Well, you're right about that.
You know what I mean?
And I'm thankful for it, though, because what God has done in the lives of so many people around here, and it's why we do a show like Let's Change St. Louis, or Kurt does Pray for Louis, because we really think change can happen. And an example of that is sitting right in front of me. And for anybody who tells me that God's not real or that things can never change, all I have to do is look at Jim Evans now and go, well, you're all wrong, because it can't change.
Thanks. Thank you very much, brother.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Thanks for watching the show today. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I want to encourage you to follow us on all the things. And until next time, guys, we pray that you discover a future and a hope for your life.
God bless you.
Amen.